Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about congruent chords and arcs. So two chords, which by the way that's going to be these guys over here, these are chords, they're congruent if and only if their corresponding arcs are also congruent. So if we have chords AB and CD, that means that arc AB and arc CD are also going to be equal. They are also equidistant from the center. So AB and CD are going to be the same distance as EF and EG, this piece right here. If a diameter or radius is perpendicular to a chord, then it's going to bisect the chord and its arc. So perpendicular means it's going to create that 90-degree angle. So we have EH and AB right here. It's forming that little plus sign. Those are going to be 90-degree angles. And if it's being bisected, that means it's being cut in half. So AF and FB, so these two little halves, are going to be equal to each other. And also, the measure of arc AH and HB are going to be equal, so even the little half arcs are going to be equal. So let's do some examples. So number one, it just says find x. So we know that my arcs are going to be equal to each other, so we're going to have 7x plus 24 equals 115. Alright, so let's solve this for x. So you're going to subtract 24 from both sides. So 7x is going to be equal to 91. Divide by 7. X is going to be equal to 13. Easy peasy. Now let's do number two. Once again, also looking for x. So these two chords, you know they're going to be equal to each other because their arcs are equal. So we're going to have 18x minus 2 equals 52. Add the 2 to both sides, and we're going to have 18x equals 54. And then you divide by 18. X is going to be equal to 3. Let's do some more. So it says find xy. So first off, we have to have our two chords here. We need to figure out what x is before I even find the measure of the chord itself. So you know that the chords are equal, so set them equal to each other. So we're going to have 9x minus 34 equals 4x plus 1. So subtract 4x from both sides, and we're going to have 5x minus 34 equals 1. Add 34 to both sides, and we're going to have 5x equals 35. Divide by 5. X is equal to 7. So now you're going to take the x, and you're going to plug it into 4x plus 1, and that'll tell you what xy is going to be. So for xy, we're going to have 4 times 7 plus 1. So that's going to be 28 plus 1. That's going to be 29. So that's going to be my answer. Number 4, find the arc measure of RS. So once again, I need to figure out what x is before I figure out the measure of the arc. And we know that they're going to be equal because arcs and the chords are always going to be equal to each other. So we're going to have 11x minus 72 equals 5x plus 6. Okay, so now you're going to subtract 5x, and you're going to get 6x minus 72 equals 6. Add the 72 to both sides, and 6x is going to be equal to 78. Divide by 6. X is going to be equal to 13. So now to find RS, you can just take your x and plug it into 11x minus 72. So we're going to have 11 times 13 minus 72. And when you crunch those numbers, you're going to end up getting 71. Number 5, find x this time. So this one's actually a little different. So you know that the two chords are equal, and so the two arcs here are going to be equal. So here's the thing. I need to actually figure out what is the measure of that big arc. So I know that this little piece right here is going to be 76 degrees. So if I do 360 minus 76, that's going to give me 284. So that's going to be the measure of this big piece, 284. So I'm going to take the 6x minus 20. I need to multiply it by 2 because remember, there's two chords, not just one, and set it equal to 284. So we're going to have 2 times 6x minus 20 equals 284. So you need to distribute the 2. So we're going to get 12x minus 40 equals 284. Add the 40 to both sides, and 12x is going to be equal to 324. divide by 12, x is equal to 27. And we just had to find x, so we're done. Number 6. So since the picture is a little small, they just wrote it in for us. So MP, that's going to be this piece here, is 5x minus 34. And Pn is 2x minus 4. That's going to be this piece right here. And we need to find the measure of MP. So we know that those two little connecting bits that shows the distance between the chords, those are also equal to each other. So we're going to have 5x minus 34 equals 2x minus 4. Subtract 2x from both sides, and you're going to have 3x minus 34 equals negative 4. Add the 34 to both sides. 3x is going to be equal to 30. Divide by 3. X is equal to 10. So now to find MP, you're going to take your 10, and you're just going to plug it into the 5x minus 34. So 5 times 10 minus 34 is going to end up being 16. So now let's look at number 7. So if DE is equal to 11x plus 15, so this is going to be DE, this piece right here, and FG, this chord over here, is 32x minus 27, find DE. So once again, you know that the chords are going to be equal to each other, so we're going to set them equal. So we're going to have 32x minus 27 equals 11x plus 15. So subtract 11 from both sides, and you're going to have 21x minus 27 equals 15. Add 27 to both sides, and you're going to have 21x equals 42. You then divide by 21. X is going to be equal to 2. So now, to find the measure of DE, just take your 2 and plug it into the 11x plus 15. Pretty straightforward. So we're going to have 11 times 2 plus 15, and that's going to end up being 37. So number 8, it says to actually find the measure of arc MP. So MP is actually this piece right here. But first, I got to figure out what this big piece is going to be. So I need to figure out x. So what I need to do is just take my two arcs and set them equal. So we're going to have 9x minus 43 equals 5x plus 33. Alright, so now we're going to subtract the 5x from both sides, and we're going to get 4x minus 43 equals 33. Add the 43 to both sides, and we're going to get 4x equals 76. And then you divide by 4, x is going to be equal to 19. So now to find the measure of arc MP, here's the thing. I need to take my 19 and plug it into one of my two arcs here, and then you can add them together because you know you're equal, and then take that away from 360. So if I do, let's do this one. So 5 times 19 plus 33. If I do that, I'm going to end up getting 128. So that means one of these arcs right here is going to be 128 degrees. So 128, 128. So now if I do 360 minus 128 minus 128, that's going to give me the measure of that little blue arc right there. And that is going to be 104 degrees. Arcs are in degrees. Let's look at number 11. So it says if QM, which is this little piece right here, and MR, it's going to be this piece right here, are their respective measures, find MN. So we're actually looking for the entire measure of MN, but we only know half of it, MR. So first, you know that QM and MR are equal, so set them equal to each other. So we're going to have 6x minus 11 equals 2x plus 9. Subtract 2x from both sides, and you're going to have 4x minus 11 equals 9. Add the 11, and you're going to have 4x equals 20. Divide by 4. X is equal to 5. All right, and now you can figure out what MR is going to be and double it. So for MR, you're going to have 2 times 5 plus 9. And that's going to end up being 19. So now to find the measure of MN, you're going to double that 19. So 19 times 2 is going to end up being 38. And that's going to be my answer. Number 12. So if CI, this tiny little arc right here, is going to be 7x minus 15, and EF, this entire arc over here, is 12x minus 8, find CI. So you know that basically, if I'm going to make this one pink, the whole arc, and the blue arc, those are going to be equal to each other. So I need to take the green one, CI, and double it, setting it equal to the blue arc. So we're going to have 2 times 7x minus 15 equals 12x minus 8. So we need to distribute, and we're going to have 14x minus 30 equals 12x minus 8. We then subtract 12 from both sides, and we're going to have 2x minus 30 equals negative 8. Then add the 30 to both sides, and 2x is going to be equal to 22. Divide by 2, x is equal to 11. So now to find the measure of CI, pretty easy. Just take the x, plug it into CI. So we're going to have 7 times 11 minus 15. And that's going to end up being 62. All right, and finally we come to numbers 13 and 14. So it says use the circle below to answer questions 13 and 14. So we need to find the measure of VW. So that is going to be this entire piece right here. So for this, you're actually going to use Pythagorean theorem and a little trig, because if you notice, we have a right triangle here in our circle. So we can use that to help us out. So if I'm going to make this little piece right here, ZW, I'm going to make that x. So what I can do is use Pythagorean theorem. So we can do x squared plus 5 squared, and that's going to be equal to 13 squared. Because the WX, that falls on the hypotenuse. It is across from the 90-degree angle. So the 13 is going to go by itself. So we're going to have x squared plus 25 equals 169. You then subtract the 25, and we're going to have x squared equals 144. Do the square root, and x is going to be equal to 12. So now, remember, we only found the measure of this little half piece right here. So to figure out the whole length of VW, I have to double it. So if I do 12 times 2, I'm going to get 24. And that's going to be my answer. So now to find the measure of YW, so let me erase this stuff, we are looking for YW, this piece right here. We're going to have to use our knowledge of central angles for this one and a little bit of trig. So if you notice, if you connect it to the center, it's going to form that central angle. So I know that this radius over here is 13, and that radius over here is 5. So we can use that to help us out. And we can figure out what the measure of the angle is, and by figuring out the measure of the angle, we can figure out the measure of the arc. So keep in mind, the 13 is on the hypotenuse. So the 5 would technically be considered next to the angle, so we're going to be using cosine. So we're going to have cosine of theta, we'll be fancy, we'll call it a theta. Actually, nah, we'll be simple, we'll call it an x. So we're going to call this angle x, okay? So cosine of x. And remember, cosine is always adjacent over hypotenuse. So the radius with the 5, that is considered next to the angle, and the 13 is the hypotenuse as we identified earlier. So we're going to have 5 over 13. So now to find the angle, you have to find the inverse cosine. So we're going to have inverse cosine of 5 over 13, and punch that in your calculator, however your calculator works, and you're going to end up getting 67.4. And make sure your calculator is in degree mode, not radians. And there you go. That's how you're going to find the measure of the arc, or the measure of the angle.